Good evening and welcome to India Decides at 9 o'clock. On the show tonight, just as we thought things couldn't get more bizarre, they have. MPs for a second day running are so agitated by cartoons that are decades old being taught in textbooks that now the HRD minister has ordered a review of all cartoons in textbooks. Is India going forward or backwards? We ask on our debate tonight, what about the more fundamental issues we face? Criminal charges against politicians don't upset MPs, but cartoons do. That's our debate on the show, but before that, our top headlines tonight. It's not just the Nehru Ambedkar cartoon, but all other cartoons could now be removed from NCERT textbooks after the Education Minister tells Parliament he has found more cartoons inappropriate. NDTV finds out which ones could be on the hit list next. Arun Jaitley targets Chidambaram on whether a decision he took in 2006 as finance minister was to benefit a firm linked to his son, denying the charge and saying that neither he nor his son hold any stake in any telecom company. Mr. Chidambaram turns emotional, says challenging his integrity is like taking a dagger to him.
It would be much simpler if somebody took a dagger and plunged it into my heart rather than question my integrity.
Our concern is not to really hold a dagger into somebody's heart. Our interest only is that the purity and fairness of governance must be maintained.
Two young Indian girls and their father are the only survivors of a plane crash in Nepal. Their mother and 12 others are killed when their plane hit a hill just seconds from landing at Jomsom Airport at a height of almost 9,000 feet. It's one of the most treacherous airports in the world. BJP tells the former Karnataka Chief Minister Yediyurappa that there's no question of a leadership change despite his rebellion. So former Chief Minister says, well, he's not quitting just yet, but he won't rule it out. So the BJP's crisis still continues, but clearly B.S. Yediyurappa also having a second thought.
So you're not ruling out resignation, you're just putting it on.
It is still I will go around in the state and take the opinion of the people, and other things will be decided as early as possible.
Congress MP and Telugu superstar Chiranjeevi distances himself from an over 35 crore rupees cash haul seized from his daughter's house in Chennai. The cash was packed in 35 carton boxes, apparently 1 crore in each carton, and stored in a bedroom. This is his daughter's in-laws' house. The in-laws say it belonged to an assistant. Meanwhile, 3 months after income tax raids on prominent businessman Ponti Chadha, the liquor baron has now reported an undisclosed income of 175 crores. Tax has been paid apparently already on it. Bit by bit, bad numbers hit home. The rupee closes again at a fresh low. It's now nearly 54 rupees against the dollar. The Sensex ends in the red, the 8th time after the last 9 sessions. Food inflation, instead of falling as many had expected, actually rose by just 0.3%. It's crossed 7%. The finance minister admits that this is now a concern. And ratings agency Moody's downgrades 3 of India's largest private sector banks, ICICI, Axis and HDFC, to D+ from C-. This is because the banks have a significant exposure to Indian government bonds. LIC is also downgraded. JP Morgan Chase's chief investment officer retires in the wake of a $2 billion trading loss. Reports suggest 2 others may also step aside. The losses, thanks to investment blunders, could double to $4 billion. Ironically, Morgan had reported a profit at the height of the 2008 global crisis. Veteran Congressman and former Governor NDTV is told by the Delhi High Court, give your DNA gracefully or we will force it out of you. The 86-year-old former Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand has been fighting a paternity suit for the last 4 years. And a major embarrassment for the IPL and Bangalore as the lights go out in the middle of a match between Mumbai and Bangalore. Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw amongst those tweeting, someone needs to be held accountable for that blackout. The top headlines, but now our top story tonight. It would be almost farcical if it wasn't such a serious matter. Our MPs united today to express their concern at no, not farmers' suicides, not about the dipping industrial production numbers, but cartoons in textbooks. Remove them immediately, they thundered. Reasons varied, from the cartoons being a threat to democracy, poisoning minds leading to anarchy, and the danger to the image of politicians. The Education Minister has now promised a review of all cartoons in textbooks. What's next? Perhaps a review of all cartoons. Amongst this united front, a lone voice of dissent, BJP leader Jaswant Singh.
I came to the opinion that a review of all textbooks of political science, as well as a general review of all books of NCERT, should be undertaken, and to ensure that inappropriate material is excluded from these textbooks. I am of the view that large number of depictions in these cartoons are offensive and are inappropriate for textbooks.
Children of impressionable age, their minds are being molded through books like this. We are molding their mind to hate politics, to hate politicians. But if we are denigrated in this manner before the school kids, then what is the impression that they will form about us? Removing the cartoon, removing this book is not enough. The person who should be removed is the Minister for HRD.
So, somebody who had prepared this book has some bad intention in his mind.
Therefore, that kind of poisoning the people, especially young children, and also what will happen? It will lead to anarchy.
कार्टून बना के बच्चों को हंसने के लिए, बच्चों को मतलब लाफिंग स्टॉक, हमारे बच्चे जो पॉलिटिक्स सीखे गए हैं, तो आप लोग बोल रहे हैं कि इसको भी ड्रॉ करिए. आप पढ़ लिया, वो कहाँ से ड्रॉ होगा? देख लिया, जो लड़का पढ़ लिया, देख लिया, हिसाब रख लिया, यहाँ से जान बचाने के लिए बोल दीजिएगा मैं एक्शन लूंगा, कार्रवाई करूंगा, वापस कर लिया. लेकिन वो सब किताब घर में रख लिया और कॉपी कर लिया, वो कैसे होगा?
कार्टून को लेकर हंगामा है. मेरे विचार में ये हंगामा अनावश्यक है. ये कार्टून आज के नहीं हैं, पुराने हैं. अपने आप में अभिव्यक्ति की स्वतंत्रता के परिचायक हैं.
So, our MPs, an exaggerated sense of self, is it really just about cartoons, but about another more dangerous issue? Who decides what should go into our textbooks? Is it politicians? Is it going to be the institutions that have been set up for this? Academics, intellectuals, school principals? Well, at the heart of this problem, joining me tonight, I spoke to earlier in an interview, is BJP leader Jaswant Singh, who's been one of the rare politicians to speak out and take a stand disunited, really breaking that united front of MPs. Mr. Jaswant Singh will join me in a short while. I'm also joined by my panel tonight. I'm joined by Dr. Yogendra Yadav and Professor Suhas Palshikar. Now, both the advisors to NCERT who resigned over this controversy over the cartoon, and the HRD's minister promised that will be deleted. I also have the politicians tonight in this panel. Satyavrat Chaturvedi of the Congress Rajya Sabha MP. I'm also joined by BSP MP, Mr. Vijay Bahadur Singh. And I'll also be joined by Professor Kancha Alaya, a well-known writer and Dalit activist, and Mrs. Annie Koshi, principal of St. Mary's School. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining me tonight. Before we go across to that special debate, let's just go across to Kulsoom, our correspondent, who has got this story about, well, the HRD minister promising that all cartoons will be reviewed, and already the people are busy looking at textbooks and seeing which ones they can actually delete. Kulsoom, what do you have on that?
Well, Sonia, I'm sure when you were a school student, you were very good with your political science. But had I got these textbooks, I would have also been very good with my political science, because they're fun and, very importantly, they offer perspective of an era gone by. So students really hooked on to these graphic novels, so to speak. But one look at these pages and you won't be surprised why all the parliamentarians are united against them. So we've got 4 suspects rounded up. The first one, of course, featuring Indira Gandhi by renowned artist Kuti, which has Indira Gandhi there distributing power to states. So you have all the chief ministers of states with begging bowls before her, and she is in a very authoritative position. So this is our number one suspect. It's likely to go out of those books. The second one, R.K. Lakshman, again a fierce critic of Indira Gandhi and the emergency era, but he's talking about politicians' attitudes towards the common man. Before the elections, they're all around the common man begging for vote, and once the elections are over, the common man is put in his place and the politicians with bloated egos. So that's our second suspect. The third one is what Team Anna would be looking at, saying that, see, we are not the only ones to be saying this, because it shows a politician covering his face and somebody prompting him saying that you don't have to cover your face now because you're an elected member, you're a politician. And our fourth suspect is on how politicians really look at everybody, every caste, every religion as a vote bank, and it has this great picture. So all these cartoons sourced from various sources and they're not actually designed by NCRT experts. So that's where it is. So Sonia, at the end of it, all those LOL moments from classroom are gone.
जो नेहरू जी बड़े कास्ट के थे, ये दलित लोगों को डिस्क्रिमिनेट कर रहे हैं.
मुझे इसमें कुछ ज्यादा गलत लग नहीं रहा. रेगुलर मोनोटोनी को ब्रेक करने के साथ साथ कार्टून हमें इजी वे में समझाता है.
इनकलकेट करता है रीजनिंग को उनमें.
डिपिक्ट करता है टाइम को. हम बी आर अम्बेडकर टाइम चला रहे हैं, जो हम जानते हैं कि धीरे धीरे हमारा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन बना था, और नेहरू जी टाइम को हेल्प करके उनकी मदद कर रहे हैं. भाई इसमें कोई कॉन्ट्रोवर्शियल बात है नहीं कि इसमें हम डिपिक्ट करेंगे कार्टून में कोई मेजॉरिटी है माइनॉरिटी है.
कार्टून कार्टून होता है, उसको हर किसी का देखने का नजरिया होता है.
Kulsoom, yes. No, thanks so much for that, Kulsoom. And again, I think interesting to hear the voices of students who've been left out of this entire debate. Thanks very much for that. And let me go across to my special panel now. Dr. Yogendra Yadav, if I can start with you, because you issued a statement after listening to that debate in Parliament today. We had some of the excerpts from that, and the reasons we saw were perhaps reasons nobody could have anticipated. None of the cartoonists, I'm sure, could have anticipated when they actually drew these cartoons.
I heard the debate very, very carefully because I take the institution of Parliament very seriously. In parliamentary debates, there's something sacrosanct about these things. I heard it very carefully. And in all fairness, if I were to wish to put a fair summary of what the political leaders of the country were saying, they were saying these cartoons affect impressionable minds and sort of orient them against politics, against politicians, and in that sense they are deeply democratic. Now that hurt me so much. It hurt me so much because and I'm glad Professor Sibal is there on the panel, if there is one thing the two of us, the two chief advisors, shared, and the reason why we had these books was to inculcate a deeper understanding of, appreciation for, and respect for democratic politics. This is what we wanted to do. And you cannot do that, Sonia, by simply preaching that old-style text and, democracy is great. Those kind of things don't work. You have to take into account the impressions kids have from newspapers. After all, they read newspapers, they do all these things. So the idea was to present all these things which they have and then counter it, give deeper reasons without wishing to offer a eulogy for politics, because there is so much in politics which no citizen can like. At the same time, we wanted to convince that despite all its mess and apparent difficulties, there is something beautiful about politics. That was the intent. And when I heard the Parliament today, I said, my God, they probably haven't. I mean, what really hurt me was everyone had a bunch of Xerox papers with them. I did not see a single copy of the book being waved in the Parliament. I did not see one parliamentarian quoting one line of the text that goes with the cartoons, and not one of them talked about the chapters, about the spirit of the book, about its preface. Parliament is supreme, Sonia. I have absolutely no doubt.
In fact, Dr. Yadav, I have that textbook here with me. Let me just quote, because you made that point that no one quoted the context. If I can bring in Vijay Bahadur Singh of the BSP, and of course, Mr. Singh, Mayawati has expressed a very strong opinion about this. But let me just quote what the text actually says. It says, B.R. Ambedkar had been a bitter critic of the Congress and Gandhi, accusing them of not doing enough for the uplift of scheduled castes. Patel and Nehru disagreed on many issues. Nevertheless, they all worked together. The text which goes with this cartoon is completely contrary to the belief which many politicians and many Dalit activists seem to have, that this implies that Jawaharlal Nehru is trying to whip B.R. Ambedkar into doing something faster. Have you actually read the text, sir?
Yes, I have read it. I may tell you the issue is not this, whether the cartoon is, the issue is this cartoon has been published for the books which is being studied by children of class 9th. Supposing if this cartoon would have been for the person who are doing research work in political science after post-graduation, the thing would have been different. If this cartoon can give both positive and negative feeling for a child, then do you think such risk should be taken at that tender age? The issue is this. To the mind of a tender mind of a boy. So it shows.
In fact, I just want to take that point you said, Mr. Singh, and Professor Palshkar, the attack on your office as well this weekend. The interesting thing is I heard AIDMK MP making the point that poisoning young minds leads to anarchy. But why is it that we never hear this issue raised when we see offices being attacked, exhibitions being shut down, seminars being cancelled? Where is the real anarchy actually lie? And the worry about this now be this kind of cleansing, political cleansing being extended to all cartoons and textbooks.
No, we are not justifying any wrong act, but two negatives will not make one positive.
Let me just get Professor Palshkar to react to that. Go ahead, sir.
Me?
Yes, sir.
No, I was saying that it's not really important what happened in my office. It is already a known fact that there was an attack. But the real point is, what are we talking about? These are class 9 students and above, and that means that they are at least 14 years of age, if not more. If we call them impressionable minds, are we going to censor everything in this world so that their impressionable minds are molded in a more moralizing fashion? Textbooks, in the first place, are not supposed to be only creating shut and open cases or ready-made opinions for the children. That is the position with which we have proceeded on this. Since we have been talking about so many cartoons and the controversy now seems to be widening in its scope, and not just about one cartoon, but the larger issue of impressionable minds, you can just look at this book itself, which you also seem to have in your hand, and I am referring to this cartoon on page 25.